Hello, everyone. My name is David Moya. This is a self-change project about breaking a lifelong habit of mine. Um, I'm a student here at CSU Stanislaus, and this is for Psychology 4790, Analyzing and Changing Human Behavior, for Professor Dr. Subramanian, an online course. Just to introduce myself a little bit, my name is David Michael Moya. I am a double major here at CSU Stanislaus. I'm working towards my Bachelor of Science in Exercise Science with a concentration in Rehabilitation Science on the physical therapy track. My goal is to someday possibly be a physical therapist. I am also double majoring in nursing, and I will be entering the nursing program at MJC this coming spring. I was just admitted to that. I'm also minoring in psychology. So if you see, those fields are quite a bit related together. I kind of follow the same ideals that Hippocrates followed, that the human body should be treated as one. And I think all these fields kind of lead to the same path of helping people find out what's wrong with them. My second here at CSU Stan, like I said. Nail biting and nursing just don't mix. The Hippocratic oath that all doctors take is to do no harm to the patient. And it has been proven in studies that nurses are often a vector for spreading infectious diseases, as cited in Hutton and Cernan in 2014, and several other studies as well. Nail biting is also a significant source of psychosocial and sanitary problems. They can lead to skin infections, they can transmit bacteria that lead to diseases, and as a nurse, this just isn't something that I would consider professional. I don't think it would be morally correct to continue biting nails, practicing medicine, knowing that your behavior could contribute to these problems. So that is why I set out to perform this project and eliminate that behavior of biting nails. The dependent variable in this project is the biting and chewing of my fingers were inanimate objects. And so the data point that I recorded was basically anytime my fingers would touch my mouth in an attempt to bite them, or if I put an object other than food in my mouth, I would record an occurrence. I would make a tally mark and make a recording of total occurrences that happen throughout each day. I self-monitor the initiation of the target behavior. I would then graph this data and see what happened through baseline and treatment. Baseline, we don't use any additional treatment other than the self-reporting. And through treatment, we will introduce an independent variable that we'll get to next. I also recorded a qualitative analysis using photographs as data so we could see a visual comparison of the progress of eliminating this behavior. To go back a little bit on my past, I have tried to stop nail biting several times, and I've had some success and some failures. Obviously, it's a failure because it's a behavior I've continued to do, but I've also been able to stop it for a while, and that was mostly through self-reporting. The independent variable in my study is it's the method of treatment, and it's the competing. I used a competing behavior to stop the antecedent to biting. What I wanted to do was use another behavior that would prevent me from biting my fingernails or chewing on other objects. And so I used eating. I use eating because you can't really chew your fingernails or chew on other objects if you're currently eating. Some people used gum chewing in other studies, but I avoided that because gum chewing gives me headaches. And so I found the highest risk situation that I had, and that was while I was driving. I kind of made a mental note that I found myself chewing my fingernails more while I was driving than any other time. And so I put sunflower seeds in my car, and as part of treatment, whenever I felt the urge to bite my nails, had a little bit of anxiety or something, I would pop a handful of sunflower seeds in my mouth, and I just keep chewing them. And at home, what I did, which isn't my higher risk situation, but at home, what I did was I got a bunch of broccoli and carrots and celery, some ranch dip, and some healthy snacks. And if I felt that I had the urge to bite on my fingernails, or if I started to, I would stop, go to the refrigerator, pull that out, and change my behavior. I did have more restrictions on my independence variable compared to some other studies. I do have other problematic behaviors, such as drinking and smoking, that I would like to change in the future. So because of these other behaviors, I did not want to increase the frequency of them. So I didn't use punishments that might increase my anxiety. I didn't take away Facebook or anything like that that could possibly increase the anxiety that would possibly increase drinking and smoking and other behaviors that I want to quit as well. And so what happened? Well, here you can see the graph. You can see the baseline behavior, which was a period of 7 days. You can see the treatment period, which was another week. And you can see that it looks like my behavior was pretty minimal through the beginning of baseline, but then it had some spikes, leveled off a little bit, and spiked again. So I think the self-monitoring did help a little bit. I think that kind of shows that. Then you can see in treatment, you can see my levels here through treatment really significantly dropped. Of course, we have on the y-axis here, we have the frequency of observed behavior, the x-axis the days. You can see how they all match up. You know, I had some bad days here. But overall, through treatment, it really looks like I significantly reduced my initiation of behavior for biting things. Part of my results, the reduction in the mean went from 14 occurrences a day to 2.6 occurrences a day. I would say that is fairly significant. And there was a reduction in the standard deviation from 8.7 during baseline to 1.4 through treatment. I think my behavior definitely stabilized during treatment, which was good. I would like to see for further baseline testing to see if we can get the standard deviation. Even if the number of occurrence doesn't drop during baseline, I would like to see a lower standard deviation through further testing there. I did have a qualitative analysis that showed success through the project. And just to give you a little bit of a warning here, it's a picture of my fingernails, and one of them, they're chewed on a little bit, so you might not want to see this. So if you want to look away from the screen while I go to this picture, I'm going to go now, and I'll let you know when I come back. So here we can see a before picture where the ends of my nails, it is a little blurry. Looks a little better on my phone. But here you can definitely see how short my fingernails were. They were a little chewed up. And in the second picture here, you can see the new growth with the white on the tips. I'm actually pretty proud of that. Pretty good progress. I think this is probably even more successful than I had in the past. Okay, I went off that screen if anybody wants to look back. The implications of this study is that I believe self-monitoring is very useful, and it's been proven in other studies, such as in Craig in 2010, Heffman and Lyons in 2016, Watson and Tharp in 2012. That's our textbook. It is proved that self-monitoring is extremely successful, and I would agree with that. I think the self-monitoring was a large part of changing my behavior. I would also hypothesize that self-monitoring alone will help to some extent, but that extends to be determined. Because through my baseline, you could still see quite a bit of variation in the standard deviation. There was a large standard deviation still. My behavior, the data never stabilized, and that's something we'd like to see. So I'd like to keep running baseline and treatment, A/B design until the standard deviation closes a little bit during baseline, to see if self-monitoring alone can cure it completely. Another implication I have is that changes in environment can produce better outcomes. When I introduced my independent variable, I had a better outcome. It was very clear that the healthy snacking that I did with the sunflower seeds and the healthy vegetables and things like that to distract and to compete with the behavior had a very good result. That was also seen in studies with Craig in 2010, Heffman and Lyons in 2016, and it's also seen in our textbook in other studies and a multitude of other behavior change projects. Limitations and changes. There are quite a few things I would do to change. First and foremost would be time. Like I said, I'd like to be able to produce an AB-AB design and have multiple phases of monitoring and treatment. I would have liked to included more data. I think just instead of including putting my fingers up to my mouth and touching or an object to my mouth and recording that as a single instance, I would have also liked to record just the initiation of the thought, just thinking about, if I think about chewing something or biting my nails, I'd like to record that as a data point. But then I'd also like to record prolonged behavior, which I think I only had one instance where I actually chewed my right thumbnail for like maybe 5 or 6 seconds. But I think that would make a good data point too to record the prolonged behaviors. Well, that wasn't necessarily a problem for me. I think in other studies that would be a good point to look at. And then as seen in the study with Dufresne in 2008, he measured the actual nail growth in centimeters, though I think a more appropriate measurement to use would be millimeters. But I think that would be a good data point to make. And so thank you for listening to my presentation here. And thank you for following along. And I hope that you were able to learn something from this. And these are my references. And have a good afternoon.